What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm absolutely honored to finally have on the show MK Ultra child trafficking and SRA survivor, targeted individual, survivor advocate, ordained minister, YouTuber and content creator, writer and author, one of my dear friends, and one of God's fierce warriors, Holly Baglio. In the shadowed laboratories of a world gone mad, where Nazi ghosts whispered blueprints from hell, Holly was not born, she was engineered. Conceived in a test tube under the merciless gaze of Josef Mengele, the angel of death, Holly entered existence on September 12, 1974, as Project Mannequin's living canvas, fusing Annunaki DNA, Rothschild bloodlines, and fragments of her biological parents' essence. Mengele sculpted her not as a child, but as a weapon, a programmable slave in the sprawling nightmares of MK Ultra. For 37 unrelenting years, Holly was a ghost in the machine of black ops and elite depravity. Trafficked as a child through deep underground military bases, or as some of you guys know them as DUMBs, in Texas, Canada, and beyond, Holly endured the unimaginable. Electroshock fractures to splinter her psyche into 169 alters, surgical enhancements to twist her body into a super soldier's shell, and satanic ritual abuse that summoned entities from beyond the void. The Daisy game still haunts her, a petal-plucked roulette of Mengele's whimsy turned carnage. Quote, he loves me not. The final not spared Holly that day, but sealed the fate of the child beside her, torn apart before a circle of wide-eyed prisoners. Survival was no mercy. It was a curse. Trafficked for her elite genetics, she was the elite's invisible hand. Politicians, military brass, secret society puppets who masked child trafficking rings and ritual murders behind taxpayer-funded veils. Pizzagate? Not a conspiracy theory, but Holly's lived hell. But in December 2011, salvation entered the chains. 3 little boys from her childhood cages, now grown men of unbreakable vow, stormed back for her, honoring a pact forged in blood. If one gets free, we return for the rest. They didn't leave her behind. But it wouldn't be until 2014 when she'd wake up to memories that shattered everything she knew about her life, and the road to healing would begin. Having had a relationship with God since she was a young child, Holly's journey has been filled with incredible moments, including being baptized by the one and only Russ Dizdar and becoming an ordained minister. Holly is no longer a slave to shadows. She is the dawn that devours them, a living testament that one soul, forged in hellfire and redeemed by heaven's blaze, can topple empires of evil. Her abusers tried to dumb down her courage and strength, but what they didn't realize was that they actually forged a warrioress, a child who would grow into a woman with unrelenting bravery, a voice that would shake the Luciferian kingdom, and a heart of gold, which is evident in her incredible advocacy work for other survivors. Through Yeshua's name, she storms the gates, healing the fractured, awakening the asleep, and heralding a reckoning where no child is caged, no truth is buried, and no darkness withstands the light. Before wrapping up the introduction of today's guest, I'd like to share just a couple quick reminders and updates. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, if you wanted to share any information privately with me, or if you were interested in submitting a written testimony to be featured in a Substack article, you can reach out to me via email at imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com or standbysurvivors@protonmail.com. I'm also streaming new episode premieres weekly on my YouTube channel at the handle @Imagination Podcast Official, and we'd love to have you come hang out. Turn on your notifications and join our loving community in the live chats every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Central Time. Thank you all on the other side of the screen wholeheartedly for helping to make the imagination the safest space on the internet for survivor, whistleblower, advocate, and educator disclosures. Your support means the absolute world to me and to every guest on this show. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming today's guest of honor, woman of God, selfless helper to the helpless, anti-child abuse and survivor advocate, artist, creator, educator, bright light, walking miracle, and absolute warrior, the one, the only, Holly Baglio. Holly, it is so good to have you on. Finally, I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
I am so excited to be here too. Thank you so much, Emma. After what you just spoke, you've left me speechless. So I don't know that I can say anything after that. But that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for that amazing and incredible introduction. I'm really humbled and floored. Thank you so much. And I really hope to give you a great interview, Emma.
You have just an incredible story, and a little background for people. I have had actually quite a few of you guys request Holly on, so I know that a lot of you watching will be familiar with Holly already, and we'll be happy to see her. But I've known Holly now for years. I feel like you were, one of the first people that I met whenever I first started podcasting, and we've talked about doing interviews a few times. It just wasn't able to work out for one reason or another. But I'm really excited, and I feel like now is a really good time to do it, especially I know you have a new project that you'll be announcing later that'll be coming to fruition soon. And you've done just so much healing and so much integration and, so much advocacy work and so many other interviews. So I'm really excited that we can finally connect and, share your journey with everybody. So I thought if it's okay with you, we'd go back in time. You have a very, very interesting birth story that I wouldn't say it is unheard of in this community at all, because there's definitely been testimonies that have had a similar background as you, but it's something that you don't hear about quite as often. So I'd love to start there and sort of share your experience and what you know of your birth story, and we can sort of share a different way of how some of these programs work, and how they can do these genetic projects and breeding programs, and you're the result of one of those. So I'll hand it over to you, and maybe we can start there.
Thank you so much, Emma. I'm really humbled and grateful again. Yeah, I feel like a Rothschild science experiment come to life. The MK Ultra projects I'm talking about stem from Operation Paperclip, and there's varieties of MK Ultra projects. For instance, if they want to create a shooter, it'll take them a week of programming, 14 days if you're a difficult case. But the projects I'm trying to expose are the ones where they use gene splicing and they actually created human beings. When I was born, I was surgically enhanced, chipped, and mind controlled. But Josef Mengele used gene splicing. He used the Rothschild that paid him money, that Rothschild's DNA. When my alters came forward to tell me these things, they told me David Girl Rothschild. Now, Renee is a girl's name here in America, but Renee in the UK is a man's name. And it's the alters that hold all the information, because they're the ones that go through it for you. I have to remember your audience is educated and they already know this. But so Mengele used the Rothschild's DNA, my biological mother and father, as well as Annunaki DNA. And Annunaki is fallen angel DNA. I was implanted in my mother's womb, and while she was pregnant with me, I was traumatized, so that when she gave birth to me and I was delivered, I came out breech. I was bent in half and my butt came out first. So right there, the odds were stacked against me. And in the projects I was with, it was a small group of kids. I'd say about 20, 25, maybe 30, about 20 or 25 kids that I saw constantly in these certain projects when I was very younger. As I got older, things changed. And so we were surgically enhanced. I have a memory of hovering over my body as a very young child and watching the 3 doctors operate on me. But behind them were 3 or 4 or 5 large, tall, dark entities assisting them and directing their hands. And I had to do a lot of research and trying to look things up to figure out where I was, what program, and what they did to me. But apparently they had strengthened our bones and did something with my organs and changed it, possibly so I could go longer periods without eating or without sleeping. But they were putting some sort of robotics or technology into our bodies. Well, anyway, on getting to go back even further, my grandparents on my mother's side of the family raised me. My biological mother basically dropped me on my grandparents. She did not come back into my life until I was about 8 years old when she met my stepdad. And he was a wonderful father. And they had my sister, and she's a wonderful sister. My stepfather is deceased though. But she was not a very nice woman and very verbally abusive. And she was never around. So I was raised by my grandparents. Now, my papa was in World War II, William Gabriel. He was in World War II on a minesweeper ship. He was a chef on a minesweeper ship. And he would come home and tell grandma how the Navy would give him and the other soldiers LSD and marijuana and different drugs just to see what it would do. They were testing these things on him. I personally think he was an unknowing candidate to these MK Ultra projects. I don't think he realized what they were doing to him. And minesweeper ships were used in the Philadelphia experiment. And I'm not saying my grandfather was a part of that experiment, but he was experimented on in some capacity. On my father's side of the family, the Baglio side, my stepdad's name was Mitchell, and I want to honor him by saying his name, Mitchell. On my father's side of the family, I met him when I was 18. I sought him out because my mother kept me away from him, and I was raised outside the family. But my father had told me that there was a prearranged marriage, and if my father wanted me to marry the boy, I would have, but he left the decision in my hands. The boy went off to marry someone else, but my father had told me that the family had mafia connections. For instance, my father's name was Philip Samuel Ross Baglio. He had 4 names. And my grandfather, Peter Baglio, who's deceased, he was the hospital administrator, I guess, to the Veterans Hospital in the Bronx, New York. So there were those connections, and those are also red flags for someone that may be going through these MK Ultra projects. So from there, all my life, I have 2 sets of memories. I have a set of the DUMBs, deep underground military bases, and another set on the surface of the earth, my normal life, where we are here and now. So I'm trying to think. The first memory I have, I think I was about 3 years old. I do want to say this. My father's side of the family had mafia connections. My biological mother, I do not think that she was used in these projects per se, but I think that she was kind of used as a reinforcement to reinforce the MK Ultra programming because she was cold and distant when she was around. Her motto was children should be seen and not heard. And she treated everybody miserably. My sister was not in these projects. She does not have the same, excuse me how I word it, but she doesn't have the same psychic abilities. She has a little bit, but nothing really compared to me. But again, she comes from a different bloodline. My stepfather, though, from Poland, his parents met in a concentration camp in World War II in Poland. So, but I was implanted in my mother's womb. I think with projects such as Project Looking Glass, they knew I was coming. So from my grandfather to my mother, they probably used her to give birth to me. And that was it, because she was never around otherwise, unless she wanted something. So they tracked me through Project Looking Glass, and they knew I was coming. But also, when I went through these projects, I was put through a Project Looking Glass as well. And I'm sorry to bounce around so much, but
don't be sorry at all. This is really important to share all of this. You know, family histories and even birth stories are such a big part of the foundations of this. And then helping, you know, an audience that some people do know a lot about this, other people are new to it and finding it. You know, I think one of the hardest things to conceive for society is realizing the networks and how far back a lot of this goes before somebody like you is born and ends up getting into this. You know, there's lineages of patterns that get passed down. There's family members that have connections, and it all kind of builds up to this moment, you know, where it becomes this sort of generational thing. And, you know, parents and grandparents or people around the family, you know, end up sort of donating either their womb or their actual child to be experimented on, you know, for one reason or another. So it's really fascinating to see how many connections your family had to government, military, you know, and even how you suspect there could have been some possible experimentation in your own, you know, genetic bloodlines on either side of the family. So with you were a child that was developed through gene splicing and then placed in an actual womb to grow as a normal child would, and you went through a normal birthing process. Do you know by chance if any other family members were a product of gene splicing like you were, or did that start with you, where they ended up mixing all those different bloodlines and sort of doing an artificial gene splicing experiment?
My grandmother who raised me, she had my mother and my uncle from different marriages. But going through my uncle's kids from his 3 different marriages, honestly, I do not believe that any of them were used. And my mother just had me and my sister. I think it pretty much just boiled down to my grandfather going through these projects, and it trickled down to me. And, you know, whatever my father and his side of the family had going on, they were going through their own stuff. So they were already connected one way. But I think it was just my grandfather and I, to be honest with you. So.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And do you know if was your mother aware of the different splicing that was going on, or did they give her a cover story as to what happened?
Oh, that's interesting. I reunited with my mother briefly because I hadn't spoken to her from 2015 until 2020 until my stepfather died, and I missed his passing. I called, but no one gave him the message. Sorry to get off on a tangent. I had sat down with her and I asked her some questions and I threw some names at her, and I noticed that there was a demon in her hiding and trying to play innocent, and I was not going to get my answers. She left me unguarded. So anybody could have walked in to my life. My grandparents growing up, they said, you know, God loves you and Jesus died for you. Don't forget that. But they never forced me into a church. None of us knew spiritual warfare. But my grandparents raised me the best they could. But I do feel that my mother left me wide open. And with her attitude, any stranger could have walked in and grabbed me. I was the one that raised my half sister. So, no thanks to her, we never had any protection. So, but yeah. When I had reunited with her and asked her some questions, I didn't get any response from her. So I don't think that she was ever really in these projects. They could have just maybe showed up, hypnotized her a couple of times, and then left. She's a type of woman that she'd rather go to Satan and get what she wants instantly versus waiting for Heavenly Abba and doing it the right way. And she thinks she's so cute with that mentality. But I remember when I was 3 years old, she always used me as a pawn against my grandparents. She grabbed me when I was 3 years old and flew out to San Antonio, Texas. And that's where I pretty much have my first memory of a dumb. I remember being in this place. It was a warehouse filled with cages. About 5 to 10 kids in each cage. It was as big as one of these Walmart stores, the big ones. And they were electrocuting us kids over and over and over again. This is also the same time when as kids were brought into a room and we were sitting on the floor, and I'd say about 25 of us, different ages from 3 to maybe 10. And the lady dressed in Nazi garb, and there were soldiers around too in this room. That's when they told us that we were going to be turned into super soldiers. We were going to be turned into myths. And I was young. I remember turning to the boy next to me and saying, "What's a myth?" And he was trying to say it's something imaginary. But they were electrocuting us over and over again. And the kids that were left alive in the cages, they were programmed. And this is also when I saw, I believe, Queen Elizabeth. She had shape-shifted into, for lack of better terms, what looked like a T-Rex dinosaur wearing a cape, like a royal cape, you know. I personally think that Yahushua Mashiach, and that's the Hebrew name for Jesus Messiah. Excuse me that I use his Hebrew name. But he's the only royalty there is, okay, in my humbled opinion. So that Queen Elizabeth and King Charles and the elites, they're not royalty to me. She looked like a T-Rex dinosaur with a fat tail, fat legs, a pointed snout, and the beady eyes that she has, and sharpened teeth. And she had taken me out of my cage and raped me and beat me, and then proceeded to go to each one of the other cages with kids still left alive and take them out and do the same thing to them. I think also in Texas, that's where they have what the dumps where they talk about the Hall of Nightmares, Hall of Nightmares, where there's different genetic experimentations where they use animal DNA, human DNA, plant DNA, alien DNA, and they mix it together and they play with genetics and they come out with these different beings, and they don't even know what they are, and they in pain, and they're locked in the dumps. They'll never see the light of day, and they're not treated nice. These dumps, the public thinks that our military and advanced weaponry is hidden down there and stored down there, but really it's more like Area 51. They do radiation testing, but also they manufacture adrenochrome there. So while everybody's wooed and wowed by the UFO and UAP lights flying around above, like, what's his name? Can't remember his name all of a sudden. Bob Lazar. I believe what he's saying, but I believe that even though what Bob Lazar is saying is true, that it is a cover story to what's happening in the dumps. They're warehousing alien species. They're manufacturing adrenochrome. And that when they, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around. Yeah, when they had me at Area 51, they locked me and three other little boys in what looked like an army barrack, like a building half sunk in the ground and still half above. And it had the windows high up on the walls. And they had locked us, the lab coats locked us in there, and they dropped a bomb. And we were exposed to the fallout. And I just remember the sky turning orange and like red. And the boy next to me stood up from the cot and he was convulsing and his teeth fell out. The other little boy froze, and the boy next to him as well. They looked like they were melting and freezing and just getting violently ill. And I got mad and I started to scream, they tricked us, and everything goes black. The next thing, when my memory comes back in, is I was in a hospital-like setting with the other little kids, the other little boys, and we were in like plastic bubbles, and I had a growth in my mouth. I reached in and ripped it out, and then I could breathe. And so I think they were, doing radiation experimentation. But they have the cure for all of that. So anyway, but that's the first memory I have, is being 3 years old in that underground military base. So.
And so there at Area 51, not only is there the sort of alien technology side of what's theorized to be there, but you're saying they're taking children there and also running government experiments such as MKUltra and other projects on children underneath this base.
Yes.
Did you have experience with advanced technology in your time in the projects? That's something a lot of survivors testify, which I think is interesting because sort of the UFO alien side of things has its own movement, and people that have been abducted and who have seen craft or aliens. Yet to me, it seems all interconnected with MKUltra. And so I'd be curious if you had experience being introduced or interacting with advanced craft technology and or any type of aliens, either there or at another base or somewhere else that you were taken.
Yeah, actually, the little gray aliens, when they were done scaring me as a little kid, in my early teenage years, they started to teach me how they flew their aircraft. But remember, out in the public sector, a lot of times when people see UFOs or alien craft, a lot of time it's our own government flying that, because we've reverse engineered a lot of this craft. But so I'd be careful nowadays. But anyway, I do have fragmented memories of walking up to, with two different Black operations teams, walking up to Adolf Hitler's bell. Yeah, they had us kids also, these quantum computers where they would map out everything in our brains and everything going on in our bodies. So, but forgive me, I'm drawing a blank. Well, it's not that I'm drawing a blank. I'm trying to think of when else. I was on the secret space program, so yeah, I saw advanced alien equipment. Just to even get there, like going into a Mars jump room. Um, but in these different dimensions, they have advanced technology. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. Like if you take any one of our guns and put it on steroids, that would be their weapons. um, but it's hard to explain, I guess, and with my memories being so fragmented. But forgive me.
No, that's fine. I understand it's hard to remember every little thing, and you're looking back on these very young ages, and you have one hell of a story of what you do remember. So I appreciate you sharing what you can recall. I'm sure it can be, really confusing even to have some of these memories and to try to figure out exactly what it was that you were interfacing with or experiencing, or if it was some type of like an AI simulation or real. Some of this stuff can be really, really difficult to look through that child's mind and interpret now as an adult. So I really appreciate you. And
No
so
problem.
going back in your story, one of the things that you mentioned was Project Looking Glass. Could you explain to people what that is? That doesn't get brought up a whole lot. And I think it's kind of a big, part of the puzzle that I think is a bigger piece of the project than what is usually talked about. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, and then we can sort of share how you were part of that and kind of move through more memories that you've had as a child.
Okay. Forgive me. What project again?
Project Looking Glass.
Oh, Looking Glass. Yeah, I was going to mention that to you before. From what I think I remember is they had brought me into a room and sat me down into what looked like a glorified dentist chair. And there was big screens in front of me. And they started to play out scenarios. But it was like I melted into the screen and I was actually there. And Looking Glass played out a scenario for your life, like how your life is supposed to be, but then it gives an alternative scenario as well. And I think it tells you, about your life. It's primarily like predicting life and death. So it kind of showed me my future, but my memory is fragmented. So to tell you, to play it back, what I saw is kind of difficult, because also going through that project, they injected me with chemicals that are I guess, supposed to heighten your senses. So my memory is kind of fuzzy. But come to think of other advanced technology, I'm sorry to bounce around. I was on Project Seagate. So we walked through, well, first of all, the dome was underneath the ocean on the floor. So they had built a dome around this gate, or the dome was already there ahead. The majority, like these domes, were not built by us human beings. The domes were built by Nephilim. We just inherited them and repurposed them. But anyway, we walked through a gate, but our bodies sat in the dome safely in a chair, and we used the silver cord to go on the other side. And I believe in the other dimension, I remember moving around freely and using different tools and different devices, and being able to physically navigate in that. I shouldn't do it, but I assume that we had avatars, and that's why I was able to navigate in that different realm. And forgive me, even I think it's no, I don't think it's Project Delta. Delta was weapons, and fighting. It was combat fighting, but I don't think it was advanced technology. The secret space program was advanced technology, and I remember different aircraft, but I just, again, my memories are fragmented, so forgive me.
No, thank you for sharing what you know. Like I said, even fragmented memories, they're all puzzle pieces, and they're really, really helpful to just hear these little bits, what you do remember. Now, for you, so you were put in a lot of different programs. Obviously, like how you were saying, they manufactured your bloodline and your genetics, and for the purpose of using you in all of these different types of programs. For you, was Josef Mengele, he was part of the gene-splicing and of your birthing process of creating you. When do you remember him being in the picture for the programs? Did that start right away where he was there with you? Or was that a little bit later on in your childhood where you remember him coming back in and being a part of your life?
I remember him right off the bat when I was a real little kid until we were up, I think, in Nelson, Canada, and Majestic 12 did a rescue mission on us. Josef Mengele would not have been happy until every one of his creations was mutilated to death. But Majestic 12 had done a rescue mission on us kids, and while we were being transported in convoy, they set up an ambush. Some of the lab coats were killing the kids because to them it was better that the kids were dead versus being saved by the other faction of the government. I was sitting in the back of one of these trucks, and we jumped out of the side and we saw a shed off in the near distance. So us kids had taken off running to the shed under the orders of the adults in the truck. They told us to get out and to run. And once we made it to the shed, we could not, it was not good enough cover, and the bullets were zinging right through the wood. And so the way everything was situated, we kind of had to run out and in front of the shed and then back up and around. And when we went to make our move, one of the little boys was shot in the back. And me and the other boy, we kept running. We just kept running. We didn't look back. We didn't stop or anything. And my memory goes blank from there. But the next memory is where we're still in the dumps. We were still turned back over and into these MK Ultra projects. It's just that we were in a different faction under somebody else's control now. And the odds were a little bit more in our favor that we would survive. But Josef Mengele, I remember him as a small child, but then I remember him coming back into my life in 2008 to decommission me and release me. I come from Project Ibis, and I think there's multiple facets to Project Ibis. They program you to think you're an angel in a human body. But also Josef Mengele, it was not only about backbreeding to the alien races, but he was also researching life extension. And that was Project Ibis. So my understanding, he's still alive. Because in 2008, he worked on me. He decommissioned me. It feels like he kind of took the pin, like the trigger pin from me. I don't have all of my memories. And that was a hard process too, because I didn't want to leave. I had Stockholm syndrome over Mengele. And he told me, we were sitting at a table and there were weapons in between us. And he told me, he said, Holly, do not come back because they'll kill you. And when I got up to leave, I turned around and gave him a hug. And I left, but I didn't want to go. And for weeks after that, Mengele monitored me, but I found my way to an online ministry, and I stuck with that. I stayed in my studies, and then after time, I began. After time, I was okay with leaving. I was okay with being decommissioned and being released, and I was so concerned with what I was doing with my ministries and my scripture and my studies that I forgot about Mengele. And when I had noticed that I forgot about Mengele, that's when I noticed he was actually gone. So, programmed in, programmed out. Like when people say, oh, we're going to run into the dumbs and grab these kids and save them and bring them back home. No, you're not. They're programmed. They're, like I was programmed. So Mengele had to program me out because my alters would have kept coming back. My alters were programmed to do certain things, and unless they were shut off, I would have kept serving him. I would have continued to be a sleeper and be called forth whenever they needed someone, or if my implants were triggered, I would have went back. But my alters were programmed with phone numbers and their orders and what they were supposed to do, and they had to be told to stop. In December 2011, that's when the 3 little boys I made a pact with came back for me and told me that they were going to go on TV and tell everybody what happened to them. And they said, what do you want to do? And that's when I said, I want to be Heavenly Abba's seal. And I don't want to be a super soldier for you. I want to be a seal for him. I had had a death experience in 2007, and Heavenly Abba brought me back. But one of the 3 super soldiers, I think that I was romantically involved with when I was active, because he had said to me, he said, well, if you love Heavenly Abba so much, why don't you just marry him? Well, 3 years later, I did. I also think, though, that he said that to put an anchor in because I went through Montauk and time travel and also Project Looking Glass. And we want to make sure I live that one certain life path. So to say, Holly, well, if you love him so much, why don't you marry him? That was like, you know what? That's a great idea. He's a perfect man. He's not going to hit me. He's not going to lie to me. He's not going to use me for what I have and not love me. I need a perfect man. So I do believe I'm on the right. I don't want to say destiny, and I don't want to say on the right path that Looking Glass laid out. But I do want to say that I think I am living in Heavenly Abba's plan for my life. And the best possible timeline I could have lived, because I'm here right now. The only other timeline would have been where I would have been stabbed to death in December 2014 and left, and my body would not have been found until spring of 2015. So the technology they have is very, very serious. For instance, like Project Beta, that might be the equivalent to Project Monarch, but it's also a little bit different in that for Project Beta, the man and woman lab coats paired me and another little boy up together. And I was under the age of 13 or in around there. And so for me, that was kind of like my first experience, my first kiss, my first everything with a boy, even though I had been sex trafficked and you ordered us like pizza and then discarded most of the kids never made it home. The man and woman lab coats told me and the little boy what to do. And I remember I was so self-conscious, And it was so uncomfortable that the little boy had said, "Put your head in my neck and forget they're here. They're not going to let us go until we do everything that they say." And what they were looking for us to do was to have an orgasm at the same time, because when a husband and wife in wedlock make love the right way, your souls light up, they flare up, and then they intertwine with each other. And that makes a soul connection. And they had computers in the room. These computers can measure the spirit realm. I don't know how else to say it, but so that would be a soul tie. Later on, that soul tie would be useful, because when me and that boy were sent out on assignments and missions, I would know what the boy was thinking. If he was going to move left, I was right behind him. If he was going to move right, I was with him and right behind him. We used that soul tie was corrupted by the military industrial complex, where it's supposed to be a beautiful thing between a husband and wife, just like an umbilical cord is a beautiful thing. Instead, it's corrupted and turned to filth and abused. But in certain combat, I don't know how you would say, I don't want to say combat, but in certain military situations, that soul tie was very useful. Like when we were sent down to South America and Peru, and into the jungle, and we were sent to get rid of different kinds of entities. But the one that I remember the most, it, for lack of better terms, it looked like Alien Predator from that 1980s movie. And we were sent to get rid of it. It was a type of reptilian. There was another kind of species that, for lack of better terms, it's like a Bigfoot. I don't think these things belong here on Earth. But when me and the other soldier were going up against these entities, and the other soldier is responsible for offensive warfare. Excuse me, I'm having a bad thought of a tree crashing down on the house, and I bind and cast it away in Yahushua Shem Selah. Forgive me. But anyway, in that situation where the other soldier is responsible for fighting and firing upon the entity, I'm the one that's responsible for defenses and setting up a shield around us to deflect incoming fire from the enemy. So for me and that other soldier to work together, that soul tie was very useful. There was another time where me and another soldier were sent in to retrieve women out of a bad situation, and I think we were somewhere in the Middle East, and the soldier that was in charge, only he could go out and get food and supplies because he was a man, and we were waiting for extraction. But if he needed energy, I would give him some of mine. We would use that spiritual cord to give him the energy and the revival and the vitality that he needed to keep going, since he was the pinpoint and who we were relying on the most until we were able to be extracted. So, boy, I've really jumped around. Forgive me. I probably have a ton of unfinished thoughts too.
No, there's so much to talk about. You were involved in so much, and even, like I said, even just fragments of what you know being shared can be tremendous puzzle pieces for people. And also, it's really good just to hear what some of these things are. You know, a lot of people aren't familiar with some of these projects, or some of the reasons why they would use children over adults, or how the genetic processes work with birthing and multi-generational families, you know. So it's really good to cover all of this. And it's amazing to think that you had time for a life on top of, in the real world, for a better lack of words, that given everything that they had you do, I can't even imagine how much time and energy and money was put into your conditioning and your training and all of these different programs that they had you in. How often were you taken into these DUMs? And also where you had mentioned, DUMs sort of around where you lived, where they were doing the gene splicing. Where did you grow up at? What state were you in?
I was born and raised in New Jersey, and
Okay.
I lived there my whole life. So as far as the DUMs, oh yeah, the DUMs in my Montauk, Long Island, New York. Oh, that was horrible. I remember begging Preston Nichols for my life. I was tied up in his van, and as he's munching down on a sandwich, I was like, you can do whatever you want to me. Just let me go. Don't put me in front of that sage raider. Just let me go. Because what was happening at Montauk was excruciatingly painful. And plus, they had a bunch of monsters running around. So, like, the last thing I wanted was to deal with Montauk anymore. And, Preston Nichols was into little boys, so he was not into little girls. He just sat there chomping down on his sandwich, and he said, I get off on science. So there was another occasion where we were in a room, and it was cages 3 stacked high, except they were not metal cages. They were like closed in cages, and you could only see like out of it. There was only a little space for your eyes. And there were a bunch of us kids locked in this room, and the white lab coat, me and the largest little boy tricked the lab coat somehow. I think I may have played sick, and we tricked him somehow. We hit him over the head, and we tied him up, and I think we stuffed him into a cage. And I said to the other little boy, I said, let's grab the other kids. We're not leaving without them. So we grabbed the kids, and we were making our ways through the tunnels of Montauk. And I went to climb up the tunnel, but I couldn't push the man cover off. So the larger little boy went up, pushed it off, and then him and I tried to hoist the other 5 kids that were with us out. But whatever drugs they had us on, once we got up and out of the tunnels, I was not banking on it being broad daylight, but we still tried to make a break for it. We got out to the parking lot, and there was a fence, but we had to scale the fence to get out of Montauk. But once the sunlight hit us with whatever chemicals they had us on, everything became woozy. We could not function. We could barely even walk. And the white lab coats ran out, grabbed us, and dragged us back into Montauk. Montauk was just brutal. So there was another time I tried to escape the DUMS. I think I was out in Texas. Another super soldier said that I ran to the sea, but I don't think so. Now, my memories are very fragmented. I could be wrong. I could have been in Montauk because there's an Indian tribe out near Montauk, but I always thought that I was out somewhere in Texas. But I tried to escape a DUM, and I was successful. I had tricked the sensors somehow, and the white lab coats left me on my own, and I was able to get out. I think I used the moonwalk to trick the sensors and the cameras, and I was able to get out. But I ran, and I found an Indian tribe. I found a medicine man, and I remember him helping me, and there was like another junior chief with him, and he told him to stay back because I was wounded. And he said that I was dangerous and to stay back. But he put me in a sweat tent. He fed me and patched me up. And once I was healed, I remember I got up from the sweat tent, and I went to walk out. and he was sitting on the opposite side of the camp, on the other side of the fire pit, and he was sitting in a chair. And I think it was blowing on a flute or playing an instrument. I'm not sure. But I heard this strange sound. And I went to take a step to walk out of the tent. But it seemed in one step, I was on the other side of the campsite, standing right next to him. Like I didn't have to take the 20 steps it would take to walk around the fire over to his chair. In one step, I was right next to him. And I remember him sitting there, and he pointed, and I followed his finger point. And when I followed it, he was pointing to my house where my grandparents and I lived. I had a vision of that in my house, and I just took off. Whatever he did to me in that sweat tent, it got me home that night. I don't know what he did in that sweat tent, but I made it home that night. I believe when I made it back home, there was a clone in my place, and I took it and disposed of the clone. But nobody ever found it. But also nobody ever found my great-great-grandparents that were buried out in the back of our house either when they built the development. So I think I'm okay. But with those dumps, they were so brutal. You figured you were already dead, so what does it matter if you try to escape?
How often were you taken down to the dumps? Was this something weekly that you were there often, or was this certain times a year? What did that look like for you?
From what I recall, it had to have been half my life because I have big gaps and portions missing from my life's memory bank, like years and decades just missing. So I would think at least 50% of the time where they had me in the dumps and on the surface of the earth, there was a clone left in my place. So like when I was in Project Seagate, there was a clone that was left in my place, going to work, going to AT&T, going to my martial arts, going to hang out with my friends on the weekends. So that way nobody ever noticed that I was gone. But my friends did note. Actually, my friends did notice because I guess at one point, the clone that they had left in my place did not go out with my friends, did not talk to my friends, and would delete all their messages. It was like an antisocial clone. But I think they had me for like 50% of the time because I have so many gaps of missing memories.
And what about the time travel? What was that all about at Montauk, and in what ways did they use you for that?
I wish I could remember more, to be honest with you. There was an experience that I had, and explain it other than I think I time traveled before, because I think it was January or February of 2015. Or no, I might be wrong. It may have been December of 2014. I think, yeah, it was December of 2014. I went to go get Chinese food, but I got lost on the way. And when I realized I was lost, I wound up pulling into a pizza restaurant. And while I sat in the parking lot, the feeling that came over me was not the same feeling you get when you have a dream come true, or like when you think that you've been somewhere before. It was a similar feeling, but kind of different, because I felt like I had actually been there before, walked around, lived, and died. As I sat in my car, I was looking at the Christmas lights, because on the pizza restaurant, they made a heart. And across the street on a shed far off in the distance, there was like a little red shining light. in the window, and I was thinking, oh, heartbeat. But while I sat there, I was really scared because I the only thing I could come up with was I have time traveled and now I'm going to be at this place again. But I don't want to have happen whatever happened when I was here before. So anyway, I went into the pizza restaurant and I told the place how I messed up the Chinese order, but can I have a pizza to go? And behind me, I hear the doorbells ring. Another customer came in, and I asked the lady, may I use your bathroom? And she said yes, like right there, 2 steps away. So I just literally slid over into the bathroom and closed the door without looking behind me or anything else. And I waited in that bathroom until I heard the doorbells go off again. So I must have been in that bathroom for 15 minutes. Plus, when I came out, the pizza was done. I was so scared. I did not want to walk out of the bathroom because there was going to be a guy customer that came in. He would strike up a conversation with me, sit and talk, ask me if I wanted to go across the street and hang out longer, have a glass of wine. And he was going to lead me into what looked like a shed, but was decorated in blankets and candles. And he was going to stab me to death and leave me there. And my body wouldn't have been found until the springtime. So I sat in that bathroom. And when I heard the door chimes go off again, that's when I walked out. I collected my pizza. And when I left the restaurant, I walked out into the parking lot. And at the very back of the parking lot, I saw 2 big, I don't know what you call them, but they're like 2 big trucks like 2 big government trucks that you would see in a convoy, very official looking. And these very tall men. And when 2 of them, and when I walked out, both of them looked at me. They stopped talking and they looked at me until I got in my car and I just drove off. I think, I don't know. I felt that situation that they were I felt that they were sent to assassinate me in that situation, because also it was right around the time that I woke up to everything. Voice to skull technology had just been used on me, or was being used on me right at that moment. So it was a very scary time for me to wake up from the MK Ultra and Super Soldier projects. I was told that I am monitored by, the fallen ones, but also a government agency too. So I always say Black Ops, but it's not Black Ops. I think it's the CIA.
Do you remember at all being young and having implants put in your body or chips, anything like that you sometimes hear about in these stories?
Yeah, I got a couple of memories, actually. I'll tell you about them both if you don't mind. They put a chip, if you go back here, and it's like in my head in there. And I remember entering into a deep underground military base, and it was George Bush Sr., a handler of mine, and me. I confused that handler in the past with another super soldier that's very well known and famous. But I reached out to that super soldier and I apologized to him for confusing him with my handler. But anyway, this big long arm reached out and scanned George Bush's forehead, scanned the programmer's head, and then scanned my head and allowed us to go into the dumb. And I remember walking past these rooms, and it looked like classrooms with these little kids sitting in them being educated about something. But George Bush Sr. was a boss to us super soldiers in the dumbs. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like everybody has dark hair, dark eyes, and wears black in the dumbs. Well, some of us have gray hair, so it might not be brown anymore, but At one time we had brown hair, but anyway, so I remember another time I was in my 20s, and black operations had come into the house and taken me out. They threw me in the trunk of a black ops officer threw me in the trunk of his car. And I tried to keep pace in my head where he was driving, but eventually I lost track because he went somewhere I didn't know. And when the trunk of the car was opened, they tried to fake an alien invasion. I don't know what else to say, but they tried to fake an alien abduction, not invasion, an abduction. There could have been little gray aliens there, but I just remember them opening up the trunk and being very aggressive with me. And then in the back of my neck on the right-hand side, on the inside of my skull and up behind my right ear, they put another implant, and they slammed the trunk door closed, drove me back home, threw me back in bed. And I remember that because for the whole week after that, it felt like I had been beat up by Mike Tyson, like grabbed around the neck by a UFC fighter and not released. I hurt from that experience for a while. So it was never pleasant, but sometimes black operations does fake these alien invasions, so just be careful. From what I know about I'm going to say it wrong, the 3RTBs or 3TBR, the triangles.
Yeah.
I know that to be our military doing it, and be careful because I'd be scared that they were there to kidnap me and animals to fly me off to sacrifice me to the fallen ones. So they still do that, but I believe the flying triangles are military, and be very careful of them. I would literally run and hide my family, my animals, and everything if I saw one of those. I probably would not want to stand there and take a picture of it because it's our own people doing it. And our own people still kidnap others and sacrifice them so they can collect knowledge and this advanced technology and advanced sciences. That's still ongoing.
And speaking of sacrifices and even of Bush Sr., which you just mentioned, part of your experiences were being taken to certain places for these sacrifices to happen. And you've mentioned Buckingham Palace, and then also a castle that Bush Sr. refers to as 1,000 points of light. Could you talk about what happens at these places? I mean, it's crazy that a lot of these estates and these castles, society is taught to revere them, and people put it on their bucket list. I want to go visit this place, or wow, this person's so lucky that they live there. This is an incredible property. But there's a lot of evil that happens at these properties that children like you are taken to that the public never knows about.
So for Buckingham Palace, they had a fake passport for me, and I didn't find out for years. It wasn't until like Sean Ryan came out with his show and these combat vets were talking, and they were talking about fake passports and fake identity, that I realized what they had done to me. When I was a young kid, they had a fake passport for me, and they trafficked me on a commercial airliner. My birthday's September 12th, 1974, but the passport said October 13th, 1975, Lori Renauld or Renee Schultz. I could not for the life of me understand why the attendants and the stewardesses did not realize I was not this guy's kid or granddaughter. I did not talk like him. I did not look like him, but they all knew him, or at least acted like it. But once at Buckingham Palace, there was a man and woman that abused us and did the trauma and torture. They had us chained up in what looked like a dungeon. There were other kids with me. I remember this one girl, I kept asking her, what? What are they saying? What are they talking about? And she tried to help me register what the man and woman were saying, but I was scared to death. Um, the man and woman would throw the kids down the stairs and then chain them to the floor. And then when they gave us food, it tasted horrible, but there would be drugs in the food. And then the day came where they stripped us down naked and said, run, run. And they did a human hunting party. I have trouble listening to bugle horns blow, certain horns blowing. Like if you've ever been to a fox hunt, when their horns blow, that I can't really take certain sounds because it reminds me of the human hunting party. They were on horses and on foot, but also I think they were on dirt bikes chasing us, and they had dogs. So they hunted us. And once they caught us, the kids were raped and mutilated to death. Once they did get I remember I think I tried to run through water to get the scent off me. I knew enough to do that. But even hiding, it felt like they could hear your heart beating. But once they caught me or the other kids, they raped me and abused me. But I think it was predetermined what kids were disposable and could be snuffed, and what kids you could beat them, but you couldn't kill them. That was already predetermined. So that was Buckingham Palace. Castle Ameroy, people like rest in peace, my mentor. He called it the Mothers of Darkness Castle. So I have a memory of being a small child, and I was outside with a small group of kids, I think like 5 or 6 of us. And I was on a tricycle. We were outside, and we had just gotten done being tortured. And we saw the adults walk out of the main castle and into another building next to it. And I guess in this other building, there's these big arches. And the witches had these cloaks on and these different objects and saying different things. And then they chose one of the kids out of the group. And I said to another child, because I didn't know what a sacrifice was, but they chose one of the kids to make a sacrifice, and they brought the kid into the building with them and left the rest of us outside. And I said to one of the other kids, I said, why is he so lucky that he gets to be a sacrifice? What, the rest of us didn't do good enough? And misunderstand. But anyway, the little kid said to me, no, you don't want to be a sacrifice. They're going to kill him. He didn't do better than us. They're going to kill him. So I guess when they do this sacrifice, there's this entity lights up 1,000 points on the ceiling or something like that. But this entity decides world events. And I think that's what George Bush Sr. was talking about. I'm probably wrong, but that's what I think it is.
Absolutely horrific. And then, as I was saying in the introduction too, there's also these horrible games that were played with you. And of course, they make everything into a game, a really twisted, sick game. But there was the one also with Mengele where he was doing the I love you not, which we do that really innocently with, a partner that we love, or, we're sort of taught like this really innocent version of this, people who are not in these programs. And then you hear about just how they invert and twist these games to end up, provoking harm and perpetration on children, which is just horrific.
Yeah. I meant to say that Castle Amaroy was the second human hunting party. But as far as Josef Mengele, yeah, that Daisy game stayed with me. He had us kids, we were outside, left to the elements, no food or water or shelter, and we were in a fenced-in area. And he walked in, and we sat down. I guess there was maybe about 15 or 20 of us. And he kept pulling the pedals, saying, he loves me not. And it landed on, he loves me not. And he was looking straight at me, and he started walking straight at me. But right before he took his last step, he turned and grabbed the kid next to me. And he brought it up in front of us. And he tortured the child to death. And my memory cuts out as he's holding the kid and walking it up in the front of us. Me and the other kid locked eyes. That was supposed to be me. And that kid knew it was supposed to be me too. I don't remember what happened. I just remember losing my mind and then going blank. We had another little game where they had us kids on acid or LSD, something like that. Sadly, I was a clubber in my 20s, and I had experimented with acid. And so that feeling is similar to the feeling that I have in my memory. And they had about 15 of us kids, and they made us play some game. Or it was a smaller, well, I know they brought 15 of us kids in, but then they made us play a game, and they had the kids pick a different color. I went to pick this pink flag, but when I went to reach for the pink flag, I saw that there was a smudge mark. So I turned away from it, and I picked the yellow flag instead. My grandmother who raised me loved pink and purple. But I wound up choosing the yellow flag. Well, the woman lab coat called out pink, and the kid that picked the pink flag, the little girl, thought she had done well, but it was the opposite, because the two Nazi soldiers came over, picked up the little girl, and threw her in a cage, and what looked like this overgrown mutant werewolf just ripped her apart. And then at that point, us kids were taken and strapped down to what looked like a gurney and wheeled out and brought into separate rooms, and the torture continued. The other thing that the adults would do is dress us kids up as different characters of fairy tales and nursery rhymes, and they would make us play out the skits. But there was always a child that was sacrificed and murdered during these skits. The dressed up. It took me a long time to figure out this one memory, because I know it's going to sound weird, but I had this memory of the fallen angels falling onto Mount Hermon, making a pact to spit in Heavenly Abba's eye. But there's no way possible that I was alive back then. I had gone to the International Satanic Ritual Abuse Conference with Wilfred Wong, Gregory Reed, and Russ Tisdar speaking. And when I went to that conference, they were speaking about the Hampstead kids. And the Hampstead kids were talking about the adults dressing up and the adults doing different things. And that's when I finally put two and two together. So it took me 5 years to figure out this one memory, but that's when I put two and two together, and everything clicked. And I was like, wait a minute. The adults dressed up as the fallen angels. They put me on a stone altar, and they made a pact on me. And they raped me and ripped me to shreds. There was another little kid there, a Rothschild kid, that a little girl, she came over and patched my wounds up. I think her name was Erin. She had left an impact because I also knew another little boy by the name of Aaron. And when I got older in my normal life, I used to wear weapons, and I named a knife Aaron, and it was after the little boy Aaron, but also a little girl named Aaron. But anyway, she patched me up. And then the adults made me serve them food and drink and polish their shoes as they still continued to beat me. And I was bleeding through the bandages, but they didn't care. I had to serve them. So, yes, Josef Mengele and the other programmers, they were sorcerers and Luciferians. So they would do rituals and act out skits. But there was always going to be a child and or animal that was sacrificed. And they would sorry.
No, go ahead.
But they would force us to be a part of it, just like the Hampstead kids said. The adults would put your hands on the knife. The adults would make you do it. You don't have a choice. So, sorry I cut you off after that.
No, I had cut you off. Thank you for finishing that. And you're absolutely right. That's one of the most blasphemous, ridiculous things to consider is, you know, you and others have these just absolutely horrific memories of people dressed in capes or costumes or characters outside or wherever they are doing these heinous sacrifices and just heinous abuses to children, to each other in groups. And when you step back and look at it, like you said, it's a planned skit. It's a planned set. They go out and buy these costumes and get dressed up. And it's like a whole production just to scare a child. And or obviously we know that there's the spiritual reasons that they do this. They're trying to harness energy from, you know, the other realms, spirits, energies, and obviously with children as a conduit to that. But you look at just how ridiculous it is that these adults put in all this time, all this money, all of this production. They all get together and they do these little skits just to scare a child. It's like what cowards people are, you know?
Yep. Yep. And stealing the innocence and purity of a child, and then they're never the same.
Right.
Just, yeah, we're tortured all through our childhoods, and then it takes our entire adulthood to heal from it.
Yeah. Yes. And you had mentioned your own spiritual gifts that you were born with and have been conditioned to further develop different psychic abilities in your spiritual gifts. How were those used in the programs, and what types of things were they developing you for?
Oh boy, in the programs, interesting. That's a good question. I remember when the Freemasons taught me how to control a dream, and they threw Godzilla at me and told me to control Godzilla in my dream. But in the DUMS, basically they taught me how to create a dream and bring someone into it, or if someone's already dreaming, bust into their dream. Like access a person while they're sleeping. But yeah, so what else? They did use me as like an oracle to predict future occurrences and what was to happen and what was to come, like with their own endeavors. So I'm trying to think. I could leave my body. I could remote view. They would use me for those. I think they even had me in some sort of psychic school where that was the focus, was the psychic abilities and predicting future events. And trying to think what else. I think that they had given me like the key to magic, or taught me what that was, or developed me so much in the black arts where I could just think of an entity and it would appear. It would be summoned. So they used me as a sorcerer. I had Stockholm syndrome over Josef Mengele. It was not only the human experimentation he was into, but he was also a sorcerer. He dabbled in, well, he didn't dabble, he was definitely into the dark arts. So, like for instance, Circle 9 was a very secret society, one of the very secret societies that put together these human hunting parties. But once I was an adult, I was welcomed into this secret society. And I don't remember putting together human hunting parties. I do remember them doing rituals, and I believe I had to get their approval and their powers to be sent out on certain assignments and missions. I was used as an assassin and for various reasons. So, like for the Rothschild assassination attempt, I remember being sent with another soldier. And while he had gone into the banquet, I was sitting outside remote viewing and monitoring the whole situation. So when he came running out the door, he knew what to expect. And then, of course, I assisted in helping him get away and making sure that that was successful. It kind of was successful, except I'm the one that got shot. A bullet came zinging through the door and caught me in my side. And that snapped me out of altar because I clutched my stomach. And when I looked down at my hands and I saw all my own blood in my hands, it snapped me out of altar. I was like, and I looked at the commander of the assignment that I was with, and I said, I'm sorry, this wasn't supposed to happen. So probably the only way to pull that off was one of us was getting shot, just how bad and to what extent. But they have this technology to heal the body. So.
Wow. And so at the same time, you're doing all of these, you're doing missions, you're being taken underground, you're being taken to labs elsewhere out of the country, and with different handlers, programmers, abusers. And at the same time, you're living a normal life above ground, as you say. You're going to school, you are, you have like this other dual life that you're living in the light, in the dark, you're doing all these other things. How was school for you? Were you in any gifted and talented programs in school? Were you a high performer? Did you have PTSD as a young kid? Like, what was life like above ground for you as you're going through all of this?
It sucked. I'm sorry. Like, I think I did better in the schools, in the dumbs, than I did on the surface of the earth, because my teachers, they basically said I was stupid, a slow reader. They put me in core classes. And as soon as they did that, the other students started to bully me. And I was hyperactive in school, so the teachers would punish me by taking my desk and putting it in the back of the room and making me face the back wall, joined with the rest of the kids. So they started bullying me. But the other trouble too was in school on the color chart, in kindergarten, when they teach you the different colors, I would always see an additional color on the left-hand side of the chart, and it was a yellow-orange color, yellow and orange color. And because I saw this color, the teachers thought there was something wrong with me. And that was another reason why they put me in these core classes. And it was to teach me that color was not there. So it just basically they programmed me not to see it anymore. It's still there. Just I think it's another, it might be an infrared color. I'm not quite sure, but so I was put in slow classes. I was told that I had ADD. ADD came out long before ADHD and prescription medications for it. So I was taught coping skills. And in these core classes, there were like 5 students and 3 teachers. And of course, they all had bad breath. And as you tried to read a book with these teachers with bad breath standing over you, you wanted to vomit. But so I was just made fun of and bullied constantly through school, and even into college. My grades were horrible. I was lucky to pass with C's and D's. So I just absolutely struggled. And I went to counting for college. I had a 2.0 grade point average, which is a C. So I was passing, but it was an absolute struggle to pass. I really enjoyed doing martial arts. I took to that like a duck takes to water. And I wrote poetry and won a few contests. So I did have a normal life. Of course, I picked out every loser to date. I did not make my grandmother proud at all. But I was married, no kids. I'm obviously divorced. But I was 24 years old when I made that mistake. And so I worked for AT&T and Pharmacia as an executive assistant. And when I was in, what year? 2004, I was bit by a recluse spider, and I contracted Lyme's disease from that recluse spider. And then I became fully disabled, and at the time partially bedridden, and went to physical therapy for 3 years. I lost use of my hands, and they were crinkled because of the rheumatoid arthritis and then the spider venom. But with physical therapy, I'm able to walk and move. So that took a big chunk of my life away, just dealing with what happened with Lyme's disease, this spider venom, and then rheumatoid arthritis and everything else. So I went from healthy and active and a full life, rollerblading 20 miles a day, to stuck in bed and relying on my boyfriend to feed me and help me bathe. And it turned my life around. And so I filed for disability, and they said I was too young to give it to me for being physically disabled, but they were willing to give it to me for my mental diagnoses. So I said, absolutely, sure, give it to me for depression, bipolar, PTSD, anxiety, panic. And they gave me paranoia too. They gave me, I guess, mood disorders. So I took it for that. And I was awarded my disability in 2013, but it was not until 2014 that I woke up to all the MK Ultra and super soldier stuff. So all of this, I never, I did take back and tell it to my one doctor, but I have to find a new doctor because he hit on me. And I need a doctor to be a doctor. I'm going to him because I need him to be the doctor, not a date. So wrong D. But it took me from 2014 all the way to 2015 to actually tell my primary care physician. In 2016, I had gone to a counselor and tried to explain the DUMBs and everything. Well, I tried to seek help from her, but I could not get help from her because first I had to educate her on what a DUMB was, what MK Ultra is, what SRA, DID is, who Josef Mengele was, who Rusty Star was. Like, first I had to educate her on the cages and the abuse I underwent before I could ask her for help. And that's no help. So I'm stubborn, and I do it on my own. I'll fail a million times before I ever ask for help type of person. So I just basically grabbed my Bible, medicinal cannabis. I detoxed off of all my prescription medications. I was prescribed 33 of them. But in 2014, I was actively taking 12. A very nice concoction, I might add, but I quit all of them. In 2013, I started turning my life around. I turned to Yahusha, and I told him I thought that I had psychic abilities, but I would like a calling from him, and could I have a future with him? Because all I saw was darkness ahead of me. And he gave me a series of dreams, and should I want to follow the lamb, I can follow my dreams and they'll come true, or I always have a choice to do something else. But he showed me what will happen if I choose to follow him, and I would really love to see his return. But now that I've repented, I've been freedom delivered and set free. He gives me dreams and visions now, but I try to use them to help people and, get rid of demons and draw closer to Heavenly Abba. So rather than being used for evil, corrupt reasons, now I can serve the kingdom of heaven. But, I had to go, I was demonically possessed because of these super soldier projects and all the satanic rituals that I had gone through. I think it was March 2015. Heavenly Abba had led me to Rustistar. From my dreams into reality, he had led me to Rustistar. And online, I was stuck. I was glued to Rustistar's videos 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. And I was listening to him for a good 3 months, but all of a sudden this one morning, Rustistar was talking about how to get rid of demons, what to say. And he basically said, you got to cast the head honcho out first and tell him to take his legions with him on the way out. So there I was washing my dishes. So I said, Heavenly Abba, I bind and cast out the big one and make him take the little ones with him. In Yahushua's name, Selah. Heavenly Abba showed up in my kitchen. I saw his Holy Spirit, and he reached out his arm and he pushed me behind him, and he roared, she's mine. She'll always be mine. And what was demonically possessing me literally came out of my chest. It stretched and it shrieked and screeched and flew out the roof of the house and away. And I crumbled onto the floor. And when I inhaled oxygen right after that happened, it was the first time I ever felt oxygen hit my lungs. It was the first time I felt air hit my lungs. I guess the demon that was inside of me, he would always get the breath of fresh air instead of me, and I get his leftovers. And the names I got, Beelzebub, Osiris, and I think Asmodeus was the third one. So that was an incredible experience. I didn't vomit or anything, but it was such a sigh of relief to have that thing out of me. And it was interesting because that was in March 2015. And I met Rustistar April, a month later, 2015. I remember when I saw him at the conference, lost my ability to speak, but I was able to get out. Russ, did it take? Am I free? Are they gone? Look in my eyes. Are they gone? But in December 2014, I had met Jonathan Cahn. I had gone to his ministry seeking a baptism, but he didn't do that sort of thing. And Jonathan Cahn laid his hands on me and said that I was a baraka, which is Hebrew for blessing, and he prayed over me. But when he did that, I felt something inside of my stomach literally roll over and get more comfortable. And that's when I knew I had a problem. So while this supposed man of God has his hands on me, that thing inside me just rolled over and got more comfortable. I remember Jonathan Cahn had invited me to come back the next week on December 12th to join him for the Feast of Lights, which I did. But before I get to that, but when he was done praying over me, I remember running to the bathroom and sitting down on the floor in the ladies' room and just praying to Abba to find me an exorcist. I don't know what I need, but I think it's something like an exorcist and lead me, because I don't know what I'm doing. I got a serious problem now. The following week, I went back December 12th, and Jonathan Kahn did his bridegroom feast teaching, and I seized that as my opportunity to marry Yahusha. He became my golden bow, and I became his silver arrow, and I began an intimate, active relationship with him. And I really needed that, because when I did and I turned to him, he made me co-conscious. And it was the first time. So I was 40 years old, and he made me co-conscious, and it was the first time I ever saw that I had alters. For the first 40 years of my life, I never knew I had alters. I thought they were like mood swings or something. Actually, it was probably more like demons and mood swings versus alters, but he made me co-conscious, and that's when I started to realize and see how, forgive me, spiritual warfare, but that was when I could see how ripped apart I was, and like Josef Mengele rewired me and screwed me all up, and I could actually see that. And being co-conscious means that my alters would come forward. I could see what they were doing, who they were talking to, and the whole nine, but I had no means of control. They were just doing whatever they wanted to do. I was sitting in the back seat of the car, watching them in the front seat drive and make the whole trip and do whatever they wanted. But I woke up in December 2014. December 2020, Heavenly Abba did barack me with full reintegration, and the 169 altars that Mengele had built into me fully reintegrated. So now I'm like one whole operating unit. I'm not broken apart. The altars are gone. It's just me here. He gave me my miracle, but I definitely want to encourage survivors out there to go to Yahusha, because when he says, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, he's saying, I am the way, because he is the way out. He is the way to do it. He is the way to cure and heal. And I think he kind of said that for us, victims and survivors. So we had a way, and we can still have a healthy life, but go to him directly for ourselves. Take out the middlemen. The churches are fallen, and we're called out of her anyway. But go to him directly and ask him to hear his voice. He's going to answer you. But I definitely want to encourage people to go to him, because if you're serious about healing and wanting it, he will do it for you. But even not to keep going on, but I'll tell you my full reintegration story real quick, if you don't mind, and then we could go to your questions. Forgive me, I don't mean to troll, but I get excited.
Keep going.
Okay, cool. I get excited about Yahusha. He's my favorite topic. But I remember thinking, full reintegration is not in the cards for me. It's not going to happen. But I got to a point with my altars where I was joking around with them. I was no longer embarrassed of them. I let them make bonds with my friends, and I treated them the way I wanted to be treated. But one day came where I realized that the gatekeeper, the altar that was gatekeeping all of my memories, I realized that that was not an actual altar, but rather a computer program running. And what had happened is one day I wanted my memories, and the gatekeeper was not letting me into the library of my mind. There was a library inside my mind's eye, and in the library, it was a beautiful library, and in each book on all the shelves were my memories. And there was even a loft to the library where you could walk up this spiral staircase and sit in this big lazy boy chair, punch in a certain code. And then on this big screen, my memories would play out like a movie. But, there's a ladder so you could walk up to reach the books. And it was just an elegant looking library. But the gatekeeper to this library wouldn't give me my memories one day. So I beat her up. I'm not the most patient person, and that's not the way to handle yourself. I'm my own worst enemy, and I'm not nice. So don't do that to your altars. Do not do what I did. But I got so frustrated, I beat her up. And when everything was said and done with, she didn't have any blood or bruises. No missing hair. Well, no nothing. She looked like, on old TV sets, the kind of TV sets we had back in the 80s when the channel had static, there would be a bar going up the screen. She looked like that. And that's when it dawned on me, wait a minute, this is not a computer. I guess it's a program running. It's not even a piece of my personality. I got angry. So what I did was I went, in my mind's eye, there was a bookshelf, a square bookshelf, and it warehoused all my 169 altars. Now, I met about a third of them. I've seen all of them, but I don't have all of my memories from each one of them. I know they're still in my mind somewhere. But anyway, I knocked over the bookshelf, and the altars fell out. And with the help of my altars, we took the bookshelf, we put it in a pile. Then we ran over to the library, picked up the library, put it in a pile. And then I also had an oval room in my mind's eye where I would go and rest and stay. We took the oval room, we put it on the pile. And then my altars were so cute. All of them put on these little pilot's goggles and pilot's hats and the white scarf and everything. And I nuked it. Instead of playing into the MK Ultra and thinking I'm going to get somewhere, always playing into it and answering into it and going to it, instead I just got rid of it. So my 169 altars and I nuked it. And then we nuked the nuked that nuked it all. And it was interesting because over the next couple of days, in my mind's eye, I would go to the hill where my 169 altars were standing to watch all of this take place. And over days, altars were disappearing. Finally, a day came where when I went to that hill, all of my altars were gone. And it was just me in my mind's eye. They were absolutely gone. I really didn't think anything of it. But I was sitting at my computer working, and I see my altars walk into the living room. And I see 169 of them walk over to me and stand there and look at me. But the strange thing is they were not taking me over. They just came to me. And there was no fights or struggles. And then it was like instantly I saw all of them grow up. Like 8-month-old Holly just grew up. They all grew up. And I moved. I did something. I think I touched my head or I moved somehow. And when I moved, I saw them move. So I did it again. And I saw that whatever I did, the altars would do. So, Michael Jackson's video Thriller, when he's got the dancers behind him in a pyramid and they're all doing the same moves? Well, I couldn't help it. I did the same thing. I started doing a dance skit with all my altars. I think it's in that movie. Is it not Frozen? I think it might be Ice. I'm not sure where. It's got the saber-toothed tiger, the mammoth, the sloth. I forget the name of the Disney movie. Anyway, the sloth met, I guess, a tribe of other sloths, and he did this dance skit, and this like group of sloths were calling him like the Fire King, and wherever he danced, the other sloths would dance. Well, anyway, I did these little dance skits, and whatever I did, my altars did. Well, then I did the can, the line dance, or the kick line. Well, when I was doing the kick line with my altars, suddenly my altars, like a deck of cards, just filed into me, and it was just me standing there dancing. And then a few moments later, they came out again. Like if you take a deck of cards and you sprawl them out, they kind of rolled out again, and we were in the kick line. And then they rolled back in me, like as if all the cards were brought back into one deck now. And I stopped dancing. And Heavenly Abba said, he said something to the effect of, you need time to get used to being healed. I'll let you say goodbye to them later on. I'll let you, like I can't, it was a feeling and a gesture that he gave to me was, Holly, you need to get used to being healed right now. Later in the future, I'll let you say goodbye, but right now, you're healed. You are now one whole operating unit. These altars are gone. They're like inside you, all patched up, but your altars were always you. You were always your altars. You are just one now. You're one operating unit. You're not broken into all these different pieces. So I got my miracle. I'm fully deprogrammed. I'm fully reintegrated. If somebody uses like trigger words, or I get triggered, or whatever happens, I will still disassociate in my mind, but no altars take over. What happens is, you can see I'm a bit disheveled, but my thought process is run off track. I'm somewhere far, far away in my mind, and I'm not with it currently where I am with people. So I'm just, my thought process is thrown off and I'm far away. I'm still me, but I'm not thinking about what's happening in front of me. I'm thinking about what's happening somewhere else. So I still do disassociate when under a lot of stress, but not like all the time or often. I mean, in severe cases, like for instance, I had to deal with a slumlord, and I lost my place over the slumlord. Actually, he paid me to leave, because if he didn't do that, had we gone to court, it would have really gotten bad for him. So it was better that I let him pay me to leave. Because that was such a stressful situation. Yes, there were times I was disassociated during that event. But again, that was an extreme event, like just day-to-day things and day-to-day stresses. That does not make me disassociate or anything. But again, it's just my thought pattern is thrown off. So.
Oh my goodness. What a story. That had to have been really incredible for you. It's interesting for me to hear about how these processes can happen, because they're so customized for each survivor on how their parts interact with them, whether it's integration or just healing together and working together and becoming sort of a collaborative system instead of being at odds with itself. And it's so amazing all the different ways that this happens, and how Heavenly Father knows exactly what you personally need, exactly when you need it and how you need it, and in the time frame that you need it. It's always like so gentle and beautiful how this happens. And that's amazing that you were able to get to a point where you can heal, where you can feel whole again, and have sort of, not necessarily a collaborative effort between parts, but just have a system that you feel you're in control of now, that you're one person and that you have control. You're not missing time. You're not switching, and you can be you you can be the person that you were meant to be before all this trauma happened. I'm really happy for you. And I know that that's really inspiring for other people to hear. Now, as far as your, I want to talk more about you going public with your story and sort of like when you decided to do that. But I want to jump back real quick. You did have a I don't know if it was a personal relationship, but with Russ Dizdar, he was a big part of your life, especially during this healing period. For you, what do you think about the Black Awakening that he talks about? And was the kind of New World Order Black Awakening type programming something that you were told was going to happen when you were in the programs?
Oh boy, I've been wanting to remember that information as far as what I was told was going to happen. Um, like the New World Order, I know that to be the Fourth Reich. So the Fourth Reich is rising. They want to rule for 1,000 years. When I was reading Russ Dizdar's book, The Black Awakening, I had a recalled memory. And in the memory, I remember being in front of what looked like a really tall, big, large man in Nazi garb with two people beside him. And in the memory, I remember speaking German and saying something to the effect of, yes, I'm the troops for the Antichrist. I went through Janus programming or end time programming, so I would have been used as a sleeper and called forward to usher in the New World Order. When the beast of the sea is given power and his head wound is healed and he starts the New World Order and ruling, I was supposed to be helping that whole movement and helping him. So Russ was such a great man. I would try to visit with him twice a year. It did not always happen, that's for sure. I never got to visit with him on his last conference like we had scheduled because he was rushed to the hospital. And I also got really sick at that conference as well.
A lot of people are talking about that today. You know, his work is sort of being recognized, I feel, today and this year more than it ever has. And I've heard multiple survivors testify that kind of this New World Order, Black Awakening type event was going to happen and that they were told it. You know, so it's interesting that you've had fragments of memories that sort of say the same, that there was potentially that type of programming and messaging that you were being given as well as a child.
Well, I think too, with the Gwen Towers sending out frequencies, and they have nothing to do with our cell phones. They're not cell phone towers, they're Gwen Towers. And with the, if this is going on YouTube, I'll try to be careful, but with the different punches in the arms, there's chemicals in there, like nanotechnology, and they ultimately want to connect us to these D-wave quantum computers. That's why they're building all of these data centers. That's actually the beast system. So they want to upload everybody on the computer, and to do that, they're going to have to pump our bodies full of these different metals that will interact with these frequencies that are sent out. And I think as far as this Black Awakening, it's not just that the Satanists and Luciferians are going to send out their chosen ones to purge everybody. What I think it is MK Ultra on a grand mass scale, except it's administered by, they're going to send out these frequencies and it's going to hit people's body and tune them out. Well, it's going to take control of them. And with the nanobots inside our systems, that kind of set up another, for lack of better terms, it sets up a second skeleton in our body. But that second skeleton the nanotechnology sets up, it takes control of us. And when these frequencies are sent out, the nanobots are going to interact with these frequencies and do what the frequencies tell them to do, with or without the person's permission. The person's going to be along for the ride and not have a choice. So we're moving into this technological age where they're mixing flesh with machine. Once they get people connected to the machine, there's no more free will. And I think the Black Awakening, this is my own personal opinion. I know people see it many different ways, and I'm not trying to debate or belittle or anything. But personally, that's what I think it is that For example, the torture-based mind control techniques were perfected on me and the other little kids I was with. And they perfected it so much that they can administer a chemical to you. So instead of getting you at the age of under the age of 6 to fracture your mind, and instead of looking for a person that has specific genetics, they perfected this into a chemical. So they give you an injection, and the chemicals in that injection damage your brain and make you primed to be a mind control slave. So they don't have to get you under the age of 6 and traffic you and break you down or anything. They can just inject the chemical into you. And then once you're uploaded via Wi-Fi to this deep quantum computers, they'll send out the frequency, and the frequency is then going to manipulate the nanobots in your body and control you. So we're at like a whole new level of warfare and technology. So I think people need to be very careful and realize that Rockefellers took away our natural and healing, our natural herbs and plants and healing herbs and plants, and replaced it with nuclear waste in a capsule and call it medicine. I think we need to look into herbs and natural remedies and natural recipes and parasite detoxes and heavy metal cleanses. We definitely want to get out nanotechnology and definitely stay away from different injections too that contains these dangerous chemicals.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why it's so important now that we get this information out that's testified by you and so many others of what you went through as kids, because now in the present moment, you and others are able to name names, you're able to name locations, you're able to name techniques. Eventually, it's going to get to a point where, like you said, it's going to be chemically induced. It's going to be AI. It's going to be, they're not going to need to have lab coats come in and do abuse. They're going to have other ways that are very hands-off, computer-generated AI, medicine, these different compounds that they're using, chemicals. So children of tomorrow that grow up are not going to be able to testify their experiences in a way that you can. There's not going to be people to name. There's not going to be places where they know that they went, because it's going to be simulated. You know, there's going to be such a different way that children grow up in these programs in the future. And so it's really important that we do talk about this now, and that we get this information out now while we can understand the foundations of it, of how this happens, the type of people that are doing it, the institutions, where it's currently happening, who's currently doing it. So hopefully we can put a stop to this now before it gets to the point that we aren't able to gather this type of information in the future, you know. And that kind of leads me into my next talking point with you, is going public. I mean, that's a really big step. A lot of survivors, you know, including you risk everything taking that jump and saying, I'm going to be a public whistleblower. I'm going to share my story, no matter how horrible it is, no matter how hard it is, because I know other children are going through this. And I need to be a voice for them, you know, which you have done for a long time now. You're kind of an OG in the community with how long you've been whistleblowing. But I want to talk to you about that journey, because I think it's the dream of every survivor to do. And I think the more that we can talk about how that happens and kind of what gave you the courage to do it, you know, it inspires others to say, you know what, if Holly's sharing her story, I'm going to go share my story. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because it's amazing what you've done over the years.
Thank you. Well, 2 things made me come, probably 3 things. The only way I can go back for the kids and hold up my end of the pact I made, should any one of us get free, we would go back for the others. Well, those 3 boys came back for me, but I want to go back for more. So by giving my testimony, I get to. The other thing is, I needed to be able to sleep with myself at night. And if I did not come forward, I'd be kicking myself in the ass. So I started coming forward. But as far as forward publicly to everyone, that kind of, I was catapulted forward to the public when Max Spears was assassinated, because I had a reaction that I wish the video was still up on YouTube, but I had made a video about his assassination, and I was like, You cannot kill a super soldier. At least you cannot kill one and expect me to be quiet about it. You cannot get away with that. So I came forward because they assassinated him, and I think that we need to be discussing this, and it needs, we need to keep exposing child trafficking, and I did not want that to die with Max Spears. So it was important to me to come forward for those reasons, to be honest.
As far as coming forward and speaking out, how has it impacted you more targeted? Has it brought you more into safety? Do you have more eyes on you? And what has been the impact just emotionally from a healing perspective, coming forward and sharing your story? Because it can be really scary to be that vulnerable, to just share these very raw moments from your life.
Yeah. Heavenly Abba is my security team. Definitely, I need him and his warring angels, because no one else will do, that's for sure. If this never happened to me, I would be off grid, living on a farm, with a big family, happily married. But it's impacted my life. At first, when I first started whistleblowing, I basically felt like I napalmed my life and I just killed it. But I don't feel I don't feel like that anymore. I believe I'm safe. I definitely have a support system. Because I came forward, I was able to create a support system, and I am at the point now in my life where I do have eyes on me. I'm renting a place, but with the homeowner's help, I turned this house into a safe house for me. So that way I can continue to whistleblow and not worry about people stalking me, whether it's somebody online or like the last person who stalked me. Honestly, I just went to go get my car filled up with gas, and the gas pumper from the gas station followed me home, and in his truck and in his mother's car was sitting outside my house for 3 months, and until I finally called the police. But at first I thought it was in my head. But then my neighbors started calling me, asking me who that was. And I'm like, all right, this is not in my head. I should have probably called the first month when I first noticed it. But I wait too long like an idiot, and I have to stop doing that. Not to put myself down or call myself names, but, to really be on top of things. But so I'm not living on my own protection. I am in a private community, and I am surrounded by police and military and other good folks. And it's nice to live in a close community like this. So it's pretty cool.
That's so amazing to hear. It's so inspiring, because a lot of the things that survivors fear, you're overcoming every day, with every step that you take, with every time you tell your testimony, with every change you make in your life. It hasn't been there's been ups and downs, of course, but you've managed to make it through and break through all the obstacles that could be in front of you. And I think that's really inspiring for survivors to hear, because it's really easy to just put the worst case scenario in our head and to let it stop us, when in fact, sometimes speaking out, making those changes, doing those things for yourself to create safety or to make a new life, that can ultimately make you safer and more protected than if you internalize things and hide and keep it to yourself and stay isolated. You create kind of a layer of safety when you do come out. And of course, I'm not saying everybody should. There are instances where you do need to protect yourself by staying quiet and isolated. Not every survivor is in a place to do that. But for those that are, I hope that more come forward hearing your testimony and find courage. And like I said, if Holly can do it, I can do it, and to be inspired by seeing all the obstacles that you've overcome. And you also, you've been online for a long time. You do have a YouTube channel. You've been on social media, and you have a new project coming out too that I want to address and talk about, because survivor resources, it's a great way we can support you. And it's also a way that we can learn about the world that we live in. So let's talk about your new book that you have coming out.
Okay. Well, right now I have my website back. It's hollybaglio.com. It does have to be edited. Right now, everything that's going in my autobiography is up on the website. I have over 125 drawings, plus I made their descriptions, and I made the drawings too. And yeah, and once I get the corrections back from the publisher, I will go to my website. Right now, my book is up on my website for you to view and read through my website. But once I make some corrections, that's when I will take the 125 drawings, the 119 written pages of my autobiography, and put it all together into one PDF file. But I need, another month to do that. So, but if you want to read the book, you can read it uncorrected on my website, or just wait until November 20th when I come out with the official PDF. And I hope that I get the corrections back from the editor, but I have to be honest, the editor is not on a deadline like I am, so he can have as much time as he wants. So, but yeah, so.
How generous of you to make this available for everybody. And I love that we can kind of see the raw version of it in the PDF that you have now. Publishing a book. I mean, honestly, that's a dream that most people in the world have to some capacity, is to write a book about something. It's like a big accomplishment. And there's many people who have never suffered any type of trauma close to what you have, who actually pursue it and do it. It just becomes a dream on their bookshelf, where they just pack it away. And one day, I think it's so amazing that you carry so much weight yourself. You've overcome so much. You're constantly talking to survivors and being an advocate for them. And you're so active in the community. And you still find time to write a freaking book all by yourself, to have an editor that's helping you on his own time. It's just amazing. Again, like overcoming all the different obstacles. Nobody does that better than survivors. And I think it's a really wonderful way to portray a testimony. It's really harrowing to see these visuals. But for people like me, for example, that didn't grow up in these networks that you and others did, it can be so hard conceptually to like visualize the things that you say, because it's so far out of the imagination of what we know. And so to have these different visuals where you're able to take your art and be expressive and take your memories and pour it onto paper, it's such a good way to help the public understand the complete, I guess, ununderstandable, the things that are just incomprehensible and impossible for us to sort of, navigate mentally and understand. So this is at hollybaglio.com. And then up at the top left, she has some tabs with her drawings, as well as the PDF that is unedited right now of her book that you guys can get for free, which is, like I said, huge for Holly to offer that to all of us. So I really encourage you guys to do that. And then also to check back, like she said, November 20th, or in about a month or so, check back and you can see the edited version, sort of the second edition per se of her book, that is a little bit more polished to her liking. And you guys can definitely take this and share it. You can share the webpage. You guys can share the art right from her website. And I love that you did this for us, Holly. I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done, because I can't even imagine, 119 pages of a book had to have just been like a monumental feat, to do amongst everything else that you're doing and navigating. And it's a huge accomplishment. So congratulations for putting this together. And I'm really excited for people to get their hands on it.
Thank you. I don't know what's wrong with me, but lately when I get happy, I start crying. So please forgive me. But, I want to tell you, if you don't mind, Emma, I dedicated my book to, I want everybody to make sure they read the preface page, because I dedicated my book to the kids in the cages, the kids I was trafficked with, but also to the kids I was not trafficked with. I dedicated it to Max Spears and his awesome moms, and I dedicated it to you guys, to you and my support system, and to everyone online who's been helping me since 2014, because I needed help and I needed a family, and you guys were it. So I dedicated it to the kids in cages and to my online family who's been helping me.
Aww.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Emma. Thank you.
We love you. Thank you for everything that you've done, Holly. I'm just like, I'm always amazed listening to you and others. It's so hard to sometimes just get by day to day for people who didn't go through what you did. And again, it's just really inspiring to see, the edges of the human limit and like what we're actually capable of overcoming, the things that we're able to heal from. It just shows that like there is very little that is actually impossible in the world. And with people like you helping us, we can create a world that's full of healing and giving people hope and helping them realize their potential, and that, that they can overcome any trauma. There's nothing too big that we can't overcome. And there's nothing too big in the world that you can't overcome. And, like you said, RIP to people like Max Spears that were really, really targeted for coming out and speaking out, and children that didn't make it out of these programs. That's why it makes it extra important that we carry that weight and we carry the torch for them, help them have their stories eternalized and shared and immortalized. And, like I said earlier, stop this in its tracks once and for all. It's crazy that this has been happening for so many generations, and it's just been allowed to happen. People haven't stepped up. It's a wonderful time that we live in now, that there's more survivors speaking out, more people believing what survivors are saying and investing into listening to testimonies, and so much of that is because of people like you, Holly, who pioneered the path for that to happen, and who gave other survivors the courage to come forward, and who are speaking and giving a voice to children that are still in this, and then also children who never made it out to be able to have the opportunity to be on a podcast or to speak out. So we just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story today. And obviously, I want to give you space if there's anything we didn't cover today that you wanted to share about anything else that you're working on. Feel free to kind of take the stage and, share any other memories that we didn't get to, or anything else that you're working on, or where else people can connect with you before we tie up today.
Okay, boy, I could sit here and talk to you for hours. I've got tons and tons of memory, but I think we kind of hit on the gist of like the main things.
Mm-hmm.
But Emma, the way you've treated me on your show, thank you so much. I am so humbled and grateful, but also the way you treat your other guests. You write out a big, beautiful, elegant composition into your guests. You put them on a pedestal and you make them feel on top of the world, and you highlight their testimonies and you bring out their best qualities, and you do such hard work, and you really dive in deep with your guests. And I just wanted to say thank you so much, because you do such a beautiful job with all the survivors and their testimonies. And I'm really humbled that you would allow me on your show. Actually, it's the second time, because we tried to run this the first time, but I got sick. I think I had COVID. I landed in the hospital, and that did not end well either.
Mm-hmm.
But Emma, you are such a beautiful and amazing, incredible woman. And thank you so much for what you've done for me, but also the rest of the survivors. And you're absolutely so special to us. And thank you for giving us a place where we can not only go and feel safe, but also talk about these things and be protected. And thank you for creating this community. I'm really humbled and honored that you would let me be on your show, where many other great, amazing people have been as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to the Imagination Podcast. I appreciate it.
The honor is mine and everybody in the audience that gets to listen to you, Holly. You're a walking miracle, and we're so lucky you're here, and that we get to learn from you, that we get to hear you, and that we get to ultimately honor everyone that you speak on behalf of, the millions of others. And it's giving courage to people to come forward. It's helping people heal. It's giving hope. And all because you had the courage to be vulnerable and to come forward and share these really hard things. And we appreciate you doing that despite the fact that it's traumatizing. You know, it's really hard to hear these things. I can't imagine reliving them as you're telling them, you know. So we really appreciate your vulnerability and getting very detailed with some of these things that you went through. And I know it's going to be puzzle pieces for people in our audience. And I ask people, if you are a survivor, if you're an advocate, if you're somebody that wants to support, go to Holly's website. I'm going to have that below. Do you have a contact page on there, Holly? Is that the best way that somebody can reach you if they want to reach out to you personally and talk to you?
Yeah. If you scroll through the first page, there should be connect with me, and you'll see like Facebook, Instagram, X, and these little icons. If you click on them, it'll bring you to my pages. And you can also either use my email address or send me a message from my webpage, whichever is convenient from you. But it lists out all the ways that you can contact me. So, and you're more than welcome to reach out to me, please.
Perfect. And I'll show that real quick while I'm on here. So this is on her book. And you guys can, let me see if I can get back to the homepage. I'll just go here real quick for those of you watching. So here's Holly's website, hollybaglio.com. And like she said, if you scroll down all the way at the bottom, it does have the icons. You guys can reach out to her on all these different platforms.
I'm sorry, honey. You might have to scroll up a little bit. Right up
here.
And up a little bit right there. If you see it to connect, there you go. Sorry about that. I'll try to fix that on the website. I'll try to take off the bottom one so there's no confusion. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. And that also shows a little contact me thing too, where if you wanted to reach out this way, they can do that also, right from your website?
Yes.
Cool. Yep. You guys have a lot of ways that you guys can contact Holly. She also does have a YouTube. She doesn't update it all the time, but she's updated it for years. She's put out tons of free content. So if you guys want to go back in time and just follow her journey and go listen to the things that she's recorded, Holly's put out a lot of content throughout the years, and I would encourage you guys to do that too, and to go support her, share her videos, share her website, share her book whenever it comes out. Or you guys can share it now, of course, but if you guys want to read it whenever it's fully edited and share that version, feel free to. It helps Holly. I would definitely encourage you guys to, and go support her on social media, lift her up, share her posts that she makes, connect with her, tell her what an amazing job she's doing, how she's inspired you, and just, support survivors. That's the way that we overcome all of this. They've been so ignored throughout society, and, now's the time to help give them a voice. And there's so many speaking out. Please help share their content, help them beat the algorithms that want to silence them, and get their content heard. So again, Holly, thank you so much for coming on today. I can't wait to have you back on. We'll have to definitely do a part 2. And this was an incredible part 1. So You guys, thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do this without you. God bless you all, and we will see you next time.